Well, our keynote today, he doesn't understand that I've respected him and admired him from afar since I was a little boy. I used to see how he'd get on the national news networks and talk about my town. I'm a Portland boy, all day and day long. I grew up northeast Portland, 11th and Ainsworth, went to Woodlawn Elementary, went to Harriet Tubman right up the street and Thomas Jefferson High School. And this man fought for us alongside my father and many of you in this room for education and for the betterment for the young people. I am a product of some of those programs that he put into place. Financial Services Academy and many others at Thomas Jefferson High School. And one of the things that I got this whole thing for the No Wasted Steps was because of the Financial Services Academy and the opportunities that they brought to it was banking and so on and so forth. I think Providence was a part of that. And we lost that. We got a whole generation that don't even know how to get downtown. And this man was at the forefront of fighting that. He brought many of you together 20 years ago about these issues that we're dealing with today. My man, Dr. Matthew Prophet, I mean, it don't get no better than this. This man is a dynamic, awesome. Have you read his resume? Now, I'm a little slow on the reading. But this man, you don't get no better anywhere than this man right here, Dr. Matthew Prophet.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Senator Avell Gordley can attest to the fact that I have prepared a 35-page dissertation to deliver to you today. And I was going to get at that podium and read it to you. I admit that this particular expose and alliteration of things that are important to our youth was reasonably highly academic, but for this setting, it's totally inappropriate. I'm going to do something now because of my aging characteristics and the senility that is creeping very rapidly into my brain. I have probably since 1952, when commissioned as an officer in the United States Army as a second lieutenant in Fort Sill, Oklahoma, from 1952 to 1992, I'll bet you I've given 10,000 talks. And never have I talked about myself. Never, never, never. But because the only thing I can talk about without notes is myself, that's what I'm going to do. I had prepared comments that had been derived from extensive research that had been conducted by some of the more renowned professorial academicians around this country, from the Midwest, from Europe, from Asia, from all kinds of places, to talk about diversity. But I was going to treat diversity along the line of employment per se, and to talk about ways that doing that would very clearly maybe lead some pathway toward the refinement of the very excellent plans that have already been developed. I'm going to intersperse some of those comments anyway, but let me begin by talking about Matt Prophet. I've never done this, but I'm getting close. I'll be 80 years old a year from now. April 4th, 1930, I was born in a little town called Okolona, Mississippi. Okolona, Mississippi at that time was the poorest state. Oklahoma, Mississippi was a town which was still in the throes of what Rutherford B. Hayes had failed to do, and that is to really remediate and to make sure that black people in Mississippi could advance. He flunked the test. Therefore, the South was thrown into the throes of endless apartheid. All of the southern states, my state included, Mississippi, was the epitome of the same kind of apartheid that existed in South Africa. This is diversity. This is the antithesis of diversity. My mother was one of 12 black brothers and sisters. My father was one of 12 black brothers and sisters. My father was one of the most highly educated black men in Oklahoma, Mississippi. Why? Because when my father went to school, you could only go to 8th grade. That was the end of your academic career, the 8th grade. My father was taught by persons who had to be imported in to Oklahoma, Mississippi, who were all African Americans, or at that time, we weren't African Americans. We were something that begins with an N, which I will not say here. And he graduated from 8th grade, but he didn't have anything to do. So he went down to Gulfport, Mississippi, and became a painter and a paper hanger. That's my father's side. On my mother's side, my mother was a person who came from a genus that was very, very mixed in terms of her ethnicity. My mother, in fact, was a family who had come from indentured servants, and the difference between my mother and my father was as much as night and day. I remember as a youngster, when I was in school, and I was about to graduate from 8th grade, my father would say, "Boy, you got to learn to do something with your hands. I'm going to teach you how to be a painter and a paper hanger." And he did. He taught me how to be a painter and a paper hanger. My mother says, "Yes, Junior," everybody always called me Junior, "but you must learn to do something with your brain." My mother was an adherent to W.E.B. Du Bois. My father was an adherent to Booker T. Washington. These were two outstanding black people, but their positions in terms of what was best for African Americans were diverse and polarities apart. I therefore attempted to satisfy both my mother and my father. And when I graduated from 8th grade, my father with his friend, you may have heard of this person. How many of you have heard of a writer for the Washington Post called William Raspberry? William Raspberry, I beat him up every day. He's 2 years younger than myself. His father had never gone to school. William Raspberry Sr. was a veritable genius. If you think Obama is bright, he can't hold a candle to William Raspberry. And Obama is very, 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 very bright. William Raspberry, because we did not have a high school that was worth attending, received a grant from the Episcopal Church of New York State. And he built a school for Negroes. That N word I can say. And the school that he built, however, was really too large for it to be filled with the people that were graduating from 8th grade. Therefore, we had to recruit people from about a 40-mile radius in order to get a critical mass to make it economically feasible in order to have education for our kids. Our curriculum consisted of, because they had to be approved by the state of Mississippi, 3 things: Mississippi history, the Civil War, and agriculture. We were not tested in